The morning sunlight streamed through the large windows, illuminating the grand hallway of the Lawrence estate. Janine stretched her arms and took in the vast, ornate surroundings. The history of the place was evident in every detail, from the intricate tapestries hanging on the walls to the polished marble floors beneath her feet. Yet, it all felt unfamiliar, distant, as though she had been dropped into a world she didn't fully understand. "You're up early," Mrs. Lawrence said, stepping gracefully into the hallway. Her soft voice broke the stillness. "Sleep well?" Janine nodded, but her mind was far from rested. "As well as I could, considering everything." Mrs. Lawrence gave a gentle smile. "You'll get used to it. This is your home now, whether you like it or not." The weight of those words settled in Janine's chest. Home. The word felt foreign. Everything in her life had shifted drastically in the past few weeks. One moment, she was living her normal life in the city, and the next, she was thrust into the heart of a centuries-old family secret. "I don't remember agreeing to this," Janine murmured, more to herself than to Mrs. Lawrence. "You didn't," Mrs. Lawrence replied softly, "but fate doesn't always ask for permission." Later that evening, Janine sat alone in the grand library, her fingers tracing the spines of the ancient books that lined the shelves. Each volume was older than she could fathom, some leather-bound and adorned with intricate runes, others cracked with age, but still filled with knowledge beyond her comprehension. Her thoughts wandered back to the conversation with Blaze earlier that day. He had been the first to tell her the truth, that she was more than just an ordinary girl. Her lineage ran deep, connecting her to a legacy of guardians and protectors, warriors of the unseen realm. Janine struggled to process it all. Magic? Powers? Were they real? Or was she losing her mind? She picked up a thick tome titled The Forgotten Vows and opened its worn pages. The words blurred in her vision as her thoughts spiraled out of control. "Who am I supposed to be?" Janine whispered to the stillness of the library. "You're meant to find out," came Blaze's voice from behind her. He leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching her with those piercing eyes that seemed to see through her. "You're always here," Janine said, turning to face him, like a constant shadow. Blaze stepped closer, his expression unreadable. "Shadows are only frightening when you refuse to acknowledge them." Days passed, and Janine found herself immersed in a new routine. Training, meditation, studying ancient texts. Blaze's lessons were relentless, pushing her to embrace her hidden potential. One afternoon, as they stood beneath the towering oak trees in the estate's garden, he spoke of the first trial she would face. "This trial will test more than your strength," Blaze said, his voice steady. "It will challenge your will, your resolve." Janine's heart pounded. "What kind of trial?" "A symbolic one," he replied. "A journey into the heart of your fears. You will face the shadows of your past, the doubts that haunt you." Janine hesitated. "What if I fail?" Blaze's gaze sharpened. "There is no failure, only growth. Embrace the darkness, and you will find the light." That night, as she lay in her chamber, Janine pondered his words. She couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to be irrevocably changed, and with each passing moment, she was drawn deeper into a web of destiny she couldn't escape. The following day, Janine prepared herself for the first trial. She stood at the edge of the estate's forest, a place that was both beautiful and intimidating. The trees loomed tall and ancient, their gnarled branches twisting toward the sky. The air was thick with the scent of moss and earth, and the whispers of the wind seemed to carry secrets only the ancient woods could hear. Blaze stood beside her, his presence unwavering. "You'll need your strength, your focus," he said, his voice low. "This trial will not be easy." Janine swallowed hard, her breath coming faster. "What if I'm not ready?" "You will be," Blaze assured her. "The trial doesn't wait for readiness, it tests it." With that, he stepped back, giving her space. Janine took a deep breath, steadying herself. The trial began. The forest seemed to shift around her, trees extending their branches, roots stretching to grab her feet. Shadows danced between the trunks, whispering her fears into existence. She saw faces from her past, family, friends, and enemies, each one appearing as illusions meant to distract her. "Stop," Janine cried, shielding her eyes from the relentless visions. But the illusions persisted, twisting and contorting her memories. "Face them," Blaze's voice echoed through the trees. "You can't run from what you are." Janine clenched her fists, grounding herself against the onslaught of emotions. She focused on her breath, on the beating of her heart, anchoring herself in the present moment. Slowly, the illusions began to dissolve, leaving only the quiet forest around her. "I did it," she whispered, collapsing to her knees. Her body trembled, but her mind was clearer than ever. The next trial awaited Janine back at the estate. This time, Blaze didn't accompany her. His presence had been replaced by an elder named Elias. "You've passed the first trial," Elias said, his voice deep and resonant. "Now comes the second, a test of your power." Janine felt a shiver down her spine. "What do I need to do?" "Channel what lies within," Elias instructed. "Let your emotions fuel your abilities, but do not lose control." They moved to a vast, open field. In the center was a simple stone pedestal. Elias handed her a crystal, smooth, cold, and glowing faintly. "Focus," he urged. "Feel the energy in your veins, the power that surges when you least expect it." Janine closed her eyes, envisioning her connection to the earth, the wind, the very life around her. The crystal pulsed in her hand, and warmth spread through her fingertips. A soft glow radiated from her skin as she tapped into something ancient, something primal. But as she reached deeper, the vision of Blaze flickered in her mind. His words echoed, "Don't lose control." "No." Janine opened her eyes, the glow fading instantly. She shook her head, her breath catching. Elias stepped back, watching her with a calm gaze. "You're stronger than you know, but you must temper your emotions with discipline." Days turned into weeks, and Janine continued her training. Each lesson brought her closer to understanding the extent of her abilities, but also deeper into the complexities of her role. The connections she forged within the estate grew stronger, and so did her trust in the people who surrounded her. One evening, after a particularly grueling session, Janine found solace in the garden once more. She sat beneath the oak tree, its branches swaying gently in the breeze. Blaze appeared beside her, his usual stoic expression softening just slightly. "You've come far," he said quietly, "but the path ahead is still uncertain." Janine looked up at him, a spark of determination flickering in her eyes. "I'll face it, no matter what." Blaze nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. "Good. You'll need allies, strong ones." "Like who?" Blaze didn't answer immediately, his gaze distant. After a moment, he spoke again. "Adrian. He's been through trials like yours, and he knows what it takes to survive." Janine's heart raced. Adrian had always been distant, enigmatic, but Blaze's mention of him sparked a curiosity that she couldn't ignore. "Let's meet him," she said firmly. Blaze regarded her with a knowing look. "Very well. But be prepared, Janine. The truth may be more than you're ready for." The night was a tapestry of darkness, illuminated only by the pale glow of the moon. Janine sat by the window of her room, her thoughts tangled like the ivy that crawled up the stone walls of the estate. The lessons from the past weeks weighed heavily on her, and yet, something felt incomplete, a puzzle whose pieces refused to fit. Blaze entered the room without knocking, his presence commanding and silent. "You're deep in thought," he said softly. Janine turned to him, her expression a blend of curiosity and frustration. "There's more to this, isn't there?" Blaze's eyes searched hers, as if measuring her resolve. "There's always more," he admitted. "But knowledge can be dangerous if wielded without understanding." Janine clenched her fists, frustration bubbling to the surface. "I want to know the truth." Blaze's gaze softened. "Patience is a virtue, Janine. Even in the face of darkness, rushing ahead can lead you astray." but her impatience refused to be silenced. "What secrets are you hiding?" Blaze took a step closer, his voice low. "You'll uncover them in your own time. Until then, focus on your training. Your strength lies in what you can control." Chapter 8. The Gathering Storm. Days blurred into weeks, and Janine's connection to the estate deepened. She trained harder, pushing her limits under Blaze's watchful guidance. The trials grew more intense, more personal. Each challenge revealed layers of her abilities she hadn't known existed. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Janine found herself standing in the grand hall of the estate. The air felt heavy, almost oppressive, as if the weight of secrets hung around every corner. Blaze entered the hall, his expression unreadable. "Tonight, a storm brews. We must prepare." Janine's heart raced. "What kind of storm?" "A political one," Blaze replied. "There are factions within our realm that will stop at nothing to claim power. We must unite our allies." "Who are these allies?" Janine asked. Blaze stepped closer, his voice a whisper. "Adrian leads one of the strongest factions. His support could shift the balance." "Then let's find him." The next day, Janine and Blaze journeyed deep into the heart of the forest. It was a path few dared to tread, lined with towering trees that seemed to whisper ancient secrets with every rustling leaf. Adrian awaited them near a secluded clearing, his posture rigid, his eyes sharp. "Blaze," he greeted, his tone clipped. "Adrian," Blaze acknowledged with a nod. "And this is Janine." Adrian's gaze shifted to Janine, his expression unreadable. "You've come far." Janine straightened her back, a flicker of determination in her eyes. "I've come to understand my place, to learn the truth." Adrian studied her for a moment, then spoke. "Truth can be dangerous." Blaze interjected, his voice firm. "Yet it is necessary. We cannot fight what we do not understand." Adrian sighed, his shoulders relaxing slightly. "Very well. You've proven your resolve. But be warned, Janine. There is darkness within this world that will test every ounce of your strength." Janine nodded, her mind made up. "I'm ready." Together, the trio stood amidst the ancient trees, bound by a shared purpose, facing the storm head-on, no matter how fierce. The days following their journey into the forest were filled with intense training. Blaze and Adrian pushed Janine beyond her limits, testing not only her physical strength but her mental resilience. Every morning began with meditation beneath the towering trees, each breath a step deeper into self-discovery. One evening, after a long day of sparring with Blaze, Janine found herself seated by the fire in the estate's library. The flames flickered, casting dancing shadows across the ancient bookshelves. Blaze sat across from her, his expression calm, his eyes reflecting the flickering light. "The mind is a battlefield," he said quietly. "Mastering it is as important as mastering your power." Janine leaned forward, her gaze intense. "But how do I silence the doubts? The fear?" Blaze's voice was steady, unyielding. "Fear is not the enemy. It's a reminder that you're alive. You must learn to embrace it, to channel it into strength." As Janine grew more adept at controlling her emotions, her understanding of her abilities deepened. Blaze and Adrian introduced her to ancient texts and forgotten rituals, each revealing pieces of her lineage, secrets that had been shrouded in mystery for centuries. One evening, under the watchful gaze of the full moon, they performed a ritual that unlocked a vision of Janine's past lives. She saw fragments of memories, battles fought, sacrifices made, and a lineage steeped in power and purpose. "You are more than you realize," Blaze murmured as he guided her through the vision. "Your ancestors left a legacy, and it is your destiny to carry it forward." Adrian stood silently, his eyes steady on Janine. "Your power is your gift. Do not waste it on petty fears." With each passing day, Janine's bond with Blaze and Adrian deepened. They became more than mentors. They became allies, protectors in a world where alliances were fragile and secrets could be lethal. One evening, Under a sky painted with hues of orange and purple, the trio stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking a vast expanse of forest. The wind whispered ancient tales, and the energy of the land seemed to pulse in harmony with their shared purpose. "We're stronger together," Blaze said, "but alliances must be built with trust." Adrian nodded in agreement, and trust is forged through shared hardship. Janine felt the weight of their words, but also a sense of belonging, a recognition of her place within this intricate web of power and destiny. With each trial, she grew more aware of the path before her. Darkness loomed, but so did the light, guiding her forward, step by step. The days turned into weeks, and Janine's training intensified. The bond between her, Blaze, and Adrian deepened, but so did the weight of their shared responsibilities. Shadows from the past continued to creep closer, threatening the fragile peace they were trying to maintain. One evening, after a grueling session with Blaze, Janine sat alone on the stone steps leading down to the estate's garden. The moon hung low, its silver light casting a serene glow on the flowers below. Blaze approached silently, his footsteps barely making a sound on the gravel path. "What troubles you?" he asked, his voice gentle. "I can feel them," Janine whispered, her eyes distant. "The whispers, the presence of something darker than we've faced before." Blaze's jaw tightened. "The old ones are restless. They seek to reclaim what they lost." In the face of mounting danger, Janine, Blaze, and Adrian convened with allies from neighboring clans and powerful seers who held knowledge of the ancient prophecies. The estate was alive with hushed whispers and purposeful movements as they prepared for the storm that was to come. "Together, we are a force they cannot withstand," Adrian declared, his voice firm with conviction. Janine felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. But what if it's not enough? What if they're too strong? Blaze placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Strength is not measured by the power you wield, but by the unity you build." The final trial came as an unexpected twist, a test of not only power but of moral conviction. An ancient artifact, thought to be lost to time, resurfaced, a relic tied to forbidden magic and dark sorcery. Janine's vision blurred as the relic pulsed with malevolent energy. She could feel its pull, its promise of power that could shatter barriers, but at the cost of her very soul. Blaze and Adrian stood guard, their focus unwavering as Janine faced the relic's allure. "You cannot fight darkness with darkness," Adrian warned, his voice a steady reminder. Blaze's gaze was intense. "Your strength lies in your ability to resist the temptation." Janine's breath hitched as memories flooded her. Visions of her ancestors, their fates sealed by their choices. She clenched her fists, drawing on her deepest resolve. "I won't lose myself," she vowed, her voice steady despite the chaos threatening to consume her. In that moment, the relic disintegrated, its dark energy vanishing into the night. Janine fell to her knees, her breath ragged, but the weight on her shoulders lessened. Blaze helped her to her feet, his expression a mix of pride and relief. "You've passed," he said softly, "and the path forward is clearer now." Adrian extended a hand, offering her strength. "You are more than you once believed." Together, they stood, united against the darkness, ready for whatever came next. The aftermath of the final trial left a somber, yet determined, atmosphere among Janine, Blaze, and Adrian. The dark force they had battled had been vanquished for the moment, but the threat lingered, and the remnants of its malevolence still whispered in the corners of their minds. "Janine," Blaze said one evening as they sat by a flickering fire, "we've only dealt with the surface of their power. There's more beneath, ancient forces waiting for the right moment to rise again." Janine looked into the dancing flames, her thoughts swirling. But how do we prepare for something we can't see? Something we can't fully understand? "We face it together," Adrian responded quietly. "The bond we share is stronger than their illusions." The following days were spent in gathering knowledge, researching ancient texts, seeking wisdom from elders, and decoding prophecies hidden in forgotten tomes. Janine's thirst for understanding grew as she uncovered the stories of their ancestors, the sacrifices they made to protect their legacy. One evening, Blaze presented a worn, leather-bound book he had unearthed from the depths of the estate's library. The pages were filled with symbols and inscriptions in a language long forgotten. "These are the origins of our power," Blaze said, his voice steady as he turned the pages. "They bind us to the earth and to each other. Understanding them is key." As the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, an unsettling silence fell over the lands. The once vibrant forest seemed darker, the air heavier. Tension hung like a storm waiting to break. "I can feel them," Janine said one evening, her breath misting in the chill air. "They're drawing closer." Blaze nodded, his expression grim. "They're strengthening, feeding off the fear and division. We must act swiftly." Adrian's gaze sharpened. "We'll need allies, those who fought before us, and those who understand the dark forces we face." Together, they devised a plan. One that would unite clans, seers, and warriors from across the land. Their bond forged stronger with every challenge, and the shared purpose became their guiding light. "We are not just protectors," Blaze reminded them. "We are the guardians of what remains, and we will fight to preserve it." The wind howled through the trees as they stood at the edge of the unknown, ready to face whatever came next. The nights grew colder, and the darkness seemed to seep into every corner of the land. Janine, Blaze, and Adrian pressed on, their steps guided by ancient runes and visions whispered from the past. Every battle fought only seemed to fuel the darkness, yet they refused to falter. "Janine," Blaze said one evening, his voice low, "we're running out of time. Their influence is spreading faster than we anticipated." Janine tightened her grip on her staff, the glowing crystal pulsating softly. "Then we need to find the source. We can't let them gain control over the ancient relics." Adrian's eyes gleamed in the firelight. "We'll confront the heart of the darkness. Together." Guided by visions and cryptic messages, the trio ventured deeper into a hidden valley, a place whispered about in the oldest legends. The air grew thick with the scent of decay, and the shadows seemed to stretch endlessly. As they crossed the threshold of the valley, the ground trembled beneath their feet, and a low, haunting hum filled the air. Strange symbols appeared in the mist, etched into the stones, glowing ominously. "What is this place?" Janine asked, her voice steady despite the unease she felt. "This is where the first blood was spilled," Blaze murmured. "The cradle of their power." Suddenly, from the shadows, figures emerged, ancient warriors cloaked in tattered armor, their eyes gleaming with an eerie glow. They had been trapped in this liminal space for centuries, awaiting a time when their power would be needed once again. "We don't have much time," Adrian warned. "They're feeding on the essence of this land." Facing the ancient warriors was no small feat. Every strike they made seemed to draw from their very souls, the battle draining every ounce of strength. Janine, Blaze, and Adrian fought with fierce determination, but the tide seemed against them. Janine was forced to her knees, her energy nearly depleted. Blaze shielded her, his body taking the brunt of the attack. Adrian fought with a calm ferocity, his blade glowing with a pure light as he commanded the elements. In a final surge, Janine channeled all her remaining power into a spell, one that bound the ancient warriors to the earth, sealing their souls for eternity. The ground cracked, and a deafening silence fell over the battlefield. "We've done it," Blaze said, his breath shallow. "But at what cost?" Janine looked around, her vision blurring. "The cost is ours to bear." Adrian placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Together. The aftermath of the battle left the trio weary but victorious. The ancient warriors were sealed, but a new darkness loomed on the horizon. The land, once vibrant, now bore signs of decay. Fields withered, rivers ran dark, and the skies wept red. "I never thought the battle would end like this," Blaze whispered, his voice hollow. Janine glanced at the horizon, her gaze sharp and distant. The battle might be over, But the war isn't. Adrian stood tall, his expression grim. The power we sealed, it's still stirring beneath the surface. Guided by old tomes and cryptic messages, the trio sought answers deep within a hidden archive. The room was dimly lit, filled with shelves of worn scrolls and ancient scripts. Janine's fingers traced the faded symbols on a scroll, her eyes scanning the text. This prophecy speaks of a vessel, an heir who will carry the weight of both light and darkness. Blaze leaned in, his breath steady. A vessel that could turn the tide. Adrian's voice was a whisper of certainty, and we must find them before they do. Their quest led them to a distant village, one that had long since been abandoned. Yet, amidst the ruins, they found signs of life. A flicker of movement in the shadows, a whispered breath in the wind. "They're here," Janine murmured, her senses heightened. Suddenly, a figure stepped into the dim light, a familiar face. It was Aylin, once an ally, now twisted by the darkness. Her eyes glowed with an unsettling hue, her form gaunt and unnatural. "Join us," Aylin hissed, her voice dripping with malice. "There's no need to fight. You've already lost." Blaze stepped forward, his sword raised. "We'll never surrender to you." Adrian's gaze hardened. "You've chosen your path. We'll choose ours." In the ensuing battle, Aylin's betrayal became clear, her heart consumed by the very darkness they fought to contain. The trio fought valiantly, but the darkness within Aylin was relentless. The battle with Aylin had ended, but the cost was high. The trio stood amidst the remains of the conflict, their breath ragged and minds heavy with uncertainty. The village lay in ruins, the once thriving community reduced to ashes and despair. Blaze's grip on his sword was firm, yet his eyes were filled with regret. "We've lost more than we've gained." Janine's voice was quiet but resolute. "The cost of war is never light, but we cannot allow this darkness to consume us." Adrian surveyed the desolation with a stoic expression. "The darkness is relentless, but we must endure." Days turned into nights, and the trio sought refuge in a nearby forest where whispers of ancient magic still lingered. The air was thick with the scent of pine and old, forgotten spells. Beneath the canopy of trees, they found solace, but not peace. "I've uncovered something," Janine said, her voice a low murmur as she studied an old map. "A hidden relic, a weapon that could tip the balance." Blaze leaned in, his curiosity piqued. "What kind of weapon?" "A crystal, imbued with ancient power," Janine explained. "But it comes with a price. The deeper we delve, the more we risk losing our humanity." Adrian crossed his arms, his mind racing. "Then we must be prepared for whatever it takes." The relic was their only hope, but its power was volatile. The trio knew that victory would come at a cost. Their own souls were at stake. "You're sure this will work?" Blaze asked, his voice laced with doubt. Janine nodded, her expression grave. "It has to." Adrian glanced at the horizon, where the darkness threatened to consume the world. "Let's finish this." Under the moonlit sky, they wielded the ancient weapon, its power crackling with raw energy. The air hummed with the clash of magic and steel, the final stand between light and darkness. Together, they fought, no matter the cost. The fate of the realm hung in the balance, and they were the last hope for salvation. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the story. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more delightful stories.